Good. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, my name is Eric. This is Derek. We want to let you guys know that we don't have masks on, but we have been working together quite frequently lately. We're basically in the same household,
well,
right?
we're fully vaccinated, both of us.
Fully vaccinated.
We're taking a little liberties here, but this is our moment for the whole public service reminder. Get vaccinated.
Get vaccinated. Wink. Yeah, I probably see you more than I see my own family, so that's pretty. Starting out a sad note there.
It's unfortunate for him.
So anyway, we're really excited to talk to you guys about power of storytelling. We're very passionate about it. We do this on a daily basis, so we're excited to tell you all our secrets of storytelling. Hopefully, you don't put us out of business, but so yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, we're live here in the Focal Point studio. Again, I'm a creative director, Eric's a videographer. We're going to kind of tell this through the lens of really video and some images, but we'll kind of give you some additional considerations. Just kind of share a little insight into what we do to produce stories and how we kind of make things work, and open it up for questions after that. So without further ado, let's get started. So what are we talking about when we're talking about storytelling? In this particular instance, we're talking about using a narrative or a linear narrative to relay a message. And obviously that's something that's very primal. It's gone on for a really long time. Here to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning of time, at least for humans, it's been in cave drawings, hieroglyphics, silent movies, up to motion pictures. It's been part of our lives for a long time, and it still is today. I mean, we tell stories on the daily, like we tell stories about how our day went at work. How we started off, had a cup of coffee, went to work, and it went crazy and challenging and stressful. And there's the climax there, and then you come home, have a glass of wine, of course, and then calm down, and it's all good. So I mean, some are memorable. That story probably isn't that memorable, but some are memorable and some aren't. So we're here to talk to you about how we make stories that are memorable and that will help your brand.
Whoops, a little too soon there. Sorry. Yeah, and really, like, what we believe stories really, they make an impact, right? That's the thing. Whether it's caveman or woman times, stories would help keep you out of danger or have pass things on from generation to generation. And so that's why we think that there's a bigger, deeper connection with that. So it really helps us in helping convey brand messaging. And really for us, we again like to do it through the lens of video, but I wanted to share a couple others here. These are a couple of Spotify ads, and we think really simply they tell a story in one graphical ad. I mean, it's using kind of that meme format of the me, also me. Obviously, I want to be more of a morning person, but also me, all-night dance party. Right, we've all been there.
Yep.
Also me, it's okay, the breakup was mutual. Also me, sad indie. It just tells us really quick story in 2 frames. And it can be really that simple. It doesn't have to be a video. It doesn't have to be a 2-hour epic like Eric's favorite movie.
Braveheart. It's a classic. Braveheart is a good movie. That is my jam. I love me some Braveheart. It just has everything in it. I mean, man, if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor, go out and see it. It's an oldie but goodie. Mel Gibson before he got weird. And it just has a roller coaster of emotions and different themes of love, action. You got brotherhood. You got patriotism. I cry a little every time I watch it. I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm a crier sometimes when I watch it. But it's such a good movie. It resonates with me and it's memorable to me. And so, that's what sometimes, what videos do is when they create it, tell a story, they're memorable and you just won't forget it. And Braveheart's done it. Mel Gibson just, knocked it out of the park. Am I right? No?
No, I'm 100% on the big thing about it, I guess, is Eric's really getting to his themes here. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But, like the patriotism, friendship, loyalty, things like that, they're really important, and they can be an compelling and important part of telling your story. So why tell a story? Really big question. According to a little industry research from Forbes, they say that 92% of consumers wish brands told more stories in their advertising. So it kind of tells me that that's more of a connection when you do tell a story.
Yeah, A picture is worth 1,000 words. I mean, we've all heard this cliche before. And technically, a 1 minute video is actually worth 1.8 million words. Believe it or not, it's silly. I know, it's ridiculous. It's silly, but hear me out. One picture equals 1,000 words. A video is shot in 30 minutes per frame, or shots
30
per
seconds.
30 seconds per frame. Equals 30,000 words a second. Times that by 60. You have yourself 1.8 million words per 1 minute video. It's silly. Yeah, I get it. But it just shows how powerful video can be, and how, it's useful to implement that in your brand video.
Excellent. So without further ado, let's talk about kind of those themes. So how do you get started? Really, it's our suggestion to really start with a theme, and that theme can be a variety of different things. Overcoming conflict is a great narrative arc that you can establish, or maybe even talking about a testimonial.
Testimonial, the classic testimonial, it's super impactful, just because, the audience, your customers, your clients, potential clients, they usually talk about your brand or your business on camera. Usually they're not an actor. Hopefully they're not an actor. And it builds trust. People want to hear other experiences of that brand. And when people go on camera and talk about how wonderful that experience is, it really resonates with them.
Yeah, another great thing to do would be a history or a process, or how it started. That's really popular with brand videos. How did you come to be today? And those make for really great arcs when you're talking about stories.
And there's aspirations. Your company or your business are doing great things for the community. Going past your product or service and talking about the community. Really, a lot of people love that. I mean, they really care about me and my neighbor. They don't just care about themselves. And so people see that, and it can attract a lot of customers that way.
Yeah, and yet another theme, and these are far from exhaustive by by any means. We just want to provide a couple of samples, but discovery, learning something new, discovering something new. There's a lot of different spins that you can put on that. So
there's also instructional videos. I'd like to give a shout out to Megan Brooks from Hapo. She actually has an incredible series of videos for kids that we have worked collaboratively on, where we talk to kids about finances and things like that. And that's not easy, talking to communicating with kids in that manner. Saying finances and fraud, my kids would probably just fall asleep. But so there, scripting and things like that, and music and graphics that go along with videos that are tailored to an audience such as your kids have to be, pretty specific. And so Megan's actually wrote out some wonderful scripts. A fist bump to Megan. We've made it come to life, and it's worked out really well. So instructional videos, they're really effective as well.
So with that said, we're going to share one that it's a really brief story from Nike. You've probably already seen this, but then we're going to kind of talk about some of the themes and things like that we see in it.
We're never alone. And that is our strength. Because when we're doubted, we'll play as one. When we're held back, we'll go farther and harder. If we're not taken seriously, we'll prove that wrong. And if we don't fit the sport, we'll change the sport. We know things won't always go our way.
And the world's sporting events are postponed or cancelled.
But whatever it is, we'll find a way. And when things aren't fair, we'll come together for change.
We have a responsibility
to make this world a better place. And no matter how bad it gets, we will always come back stronger. Because nothing can stop what we can do together.
Wow. was a lot of good stuff in there. It was a really good ad. Although it was like a minute and 30 seconds, there was so much information and so many themes and emotions that go along with that video. I mean, there's an arc. We start with sports, and then we go over the pandemic and overcoming those challenges, and we see kids at home playing sports, and I think we can all relate. And then it comes down, and we're all together, and we're making the world a better place. Am I right? And so there's other things. There's inclusiveness. You got white, black, Asian, Muslim, disabled people in the video. There's perseverance, overcoming a challenge. It's crazy because they don't talk about their product. It's a commodity. It's shoes. Like we use this every day. And so I mean, Nike's been around for a long time, and they're at the top of their game. But they don't have to worry about that. Their values are in the athletes and the athletics, and that hits home for me. I was getting a little teary myself watching that again. I mean, it's a great ad. There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, no, I think some of the themes that they explore here are really good. They're really powerful, right? In combination with some of the executional materials, the music, the way that it does the split screen athletes and finding the right type of imagery is really powerful. But yeah, again, loss and redemption, teamwork, dedication, putting in that hard work and getting it out. And that's kind of the theme that goes kind of with the underlying things. You can kind of feel how it kind of raises and goes throughout. And so that's why we think it's a powerful
also
combination.
It's logistically, like putting the images together and like matching it up is just it's a nightmare, honestly. If I were to edit that, man, I don't think people understand the work that would have to go into that. But it's different. You don't see a lot of those ads where I don't think I've ever seen an ad where they're mixing two shots together and they work seamlessly. So it's different. The script, incredible script.
Yep.
And Nike they tend to do some crazy stuff too, where they, a couple years ago they did the Kaepernick ad. I don't know if any of you guys remember that, but they took a risk, and it was very polarizing, a little bit controversial, but ended up paying in the end. Their stock skyrocketed after that. So don't be afraid to take chances on some of your stuff. I think is the story for that.
Yeah. So where to start? Like if you already have a theme, really like the next place to go would be to kind of start working on building your story. Where's your medium? Where's your story going to live? And again, we reflect on video a lot, but you don't have to just rely on video. There's some really cool things that they're doing in the AR and the VR space. That's virtual or augmented reality. We looked into a campaign while we were doing research into this where Wendy's actually infused their brand into a Fortnite campaign. And it was kind of cool because, I mean, rather than having it be a strict linear narrative from the Wendy's perspective, everybody kind of has their own story in the way that they're playing the game, and then Wendy's brand interacts with that. So yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can make your story work. Just choose that medium and where it's going to live. Obviously, social media is always
social media is huge. I mean, UPS just put out, and I mean, it was a couple months ago, but they use it user generated content, UGC, and what they use, it's kind of a testimonial type thing where they utilize images and videos coming from the customers all over the world about UPS and how they're heroes on delivering these packages during the pandemic. And so they use the pandemic to their strength and really showed off, some of the stuff that they do in the world. And it really resonates with people for sure.
And getting those users to share their stories, kind of the testimonials like we were talking about, but in a different space. It doesn't necessarily have to be video. So just something to consider. So with that said, get to work making that story. What are you going to use? How are you going to execute it? We see the use of music and audio. If we think back to that Nike ad, like obviously the triumphant music was really powerful, combination with the script and really poetic and makes you kind of feel inspired.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into a video, and I think the first thing is a script. Obviously, that's the heart and soul of any video. And then you go into your lighting. I mean, a lot of people don't think about lighting and how that affects the tone of a video. If you have one light and on one side and the other side is completely black, it has that drama. And depending on your message, you might want to have flat lighting, if you're doing a testimonial and you don't want that lighting to be distracting, then you want that flat lighting. So there's different ways with lighting that emphasize the video as well. And then the pacing and editing, like, if you want a hardcore energy, exciting ad where the pacing is really fast and you have high energy music, that can set the tone for video. Or if you want to kind of laid back, maybe like a Terra Blanca ad, maybe a winery ad, long cuts, slower music, it can really set a tone for that ad too, on setting, how you would think you'd be at a winery, just kind of relaxed. So that helps out a lot. Lenses, we're gonna kind of get into the technical details, and this is my world. I'm gonna nerd out a little bit, but there's lenses involved with shooting these videos. You want a wide lens, you want to get a bunch of people in the video, or you want that close-up telephoto lens. You want the audience to see a certain thing. They even have like probe lenses where it can go into objects, and it's pretty incredible what type of lenses they have these days. And I feel like I spend just way too much money on lenses, stupid lenses. So, but it makes a huge difference in on the tone of your video, for sure.
Ultimately, we're just kind of talking about, you decide what, your story is going to be, what medium you're going to use. And this is, what paints you're going to paint your canvas with. And so in this instance, we are talking about these cinematic approaches, but it could be color, it could be text. And I know we kept saying ads, but we're just talking about videos. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be an advertisement in the traditional sense. There's a lot of brand videos, long and short format that might be able to help you tell your story. It's all just about connecting. And in our business, it's always trying to connect people's brand, their products and services with people, and that's just all we're looking to do. So another consideration, again, when you're painting that canvas is, how large is that canvas? And in this case, the duration. We're talking about video. It could be a 3 minute, it could be a minute and a half. It could have to fit into small blocks. It just depends on who you're talking to, how long you'll have their attention, and what we have to do to gain it.
Yeah, I mean, normally a long video, you're trying to get that tear-jerking video out there for people to, maybe give money or something for a cause. That takes time to build that story and for people to understand what you're trying to say. So those tend to be a little bit longer, usually on online format. These 6 seconds, 7-second ads, man, they're becoming more popular nowadays, just because our attention span these days, man. We don't want to watch something for too long. So these 6-second ads, a lot of them are people are coming out with them, and obviously they have to catch your attention, but they can be really effective, and you can't skip them, which is a big thing nowadays, for sure. So yeah, so duration's a huge portion. It depends on your budget, obviously, and where your ad will appear depends on duration.
So with that said, we want to share some of the work that we've done and kind of explore kind of the themes and executions that we did for each. So without further ado, we'll start with Pack Fitness.
So we're only going to show you a portion of this.
It's a little long.
So that was Pack Fitness. It's a high energy video. The client came to us and said, "Hey, we don't want any talking. We want our athletes to do the talking." And so we use video and lighting. Just that one light creates that dramatic effect. They're not trying to sugarcoat the hard work that's put into their athletes and getting in shape. So they wanted to show, those athletes, and we did that with the lighting and then the music. And then we try to mix it up with some different shots showing the gym, getting that wide shot, and then we get some close-ups of the athletes. There's a lot of different elements to gain your attention and keep you engaged through the video. It's a little bit longer. We didn't want to show the whole thing, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that it does a really good job of using images to pace and show that kind of the hard work and the process. One of the things that I like is that it opens up with that big establishing shot that kind of shows you the whole space and gets you an idea for that. And then we go instantly to an athlete as he's kind of checking in, and then going in through the gym. And execution wise, I thought it was really cool the way that they use the lighting to create kind of dramatic. I mean, dudes are totally ripped
God,
and,
yeah.
and look even more sculpted, right? And so it just adds a lot of drama, and along with some like cool editing techniques, I thought, in a combination of the music, it really talks to the audience really well. And without having a narrative, it, I think, establishes a decent flow. And I know we didn't watch the entire thing, but you can kind of feel it go and start to build up the tension a little bit, and eventually kind of convey the entire message.
To see the whole thing, go to PackFit on social media, Instagram. Wow. Okay, so another example.
It's another one we have for you here. This one's a little shorter.
Oh, it ended a little abruptly, but it's all right. So yeah, that was the theme was a little discovery of the Tri-Cities. So a lot of different elements that went into that shoot. The use of sound effects. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like the little sound effects of the bicycle and the wine, like those are huge, tiny little elements that people don't recognize, but it actually adds a lot to the video. We wanted to make it interesting without a narrative or some narration. We wanted to put some text in there to make it a little bit more engaging, and then just mixing up the shots, getting the drone out there, getting some close-ups of the bikes, and yeah, that's the whole goal, is to make it interesting and engaging and memorable. So
yeah, and I think that one of the other things, in addition to discovery here, is that it's kind of cool that it's told through a series of kind of 3 short vignettes. You have the paddleboarders, you have the bike riders, and then eventually the winery. And it just very quickly kind of cycles through those, but I think that it does a good job of kind of establishing where they are, combined with some executional approaches that make it kind of unique. And again, I like the typography. There's a lot of good things going on there. The color and everything like that. So,
yeah. Our last sample here.
This one's a little on the longer side. It's going to combine the use of narration and some other themes. So.
Some roads exist only for the inspired. Those who spend sleepless nights wide awake and dreaming. Whose hard work and sweat forge paths to the unknown. Who've studied the process, yet seek to refine it. Some roads exist only for the impassioned, the ones who reject good in favor of something better, who see boundaries as nothing more than distractions, and who believe answers lie not in what stands to be gained, but what experience seeks to teach us.
Well, okay, apparently that's all we're going to see. Sorry, networking issues.
Pay your Wi-Fi bill, it sounds like.
Right.
Want to explain?
Yeah, no, I think they're really here with the Terra Blanca video. You can see it more published presentation after this. It's really history and process here. We're trying to craft this narrative through use of really powerful narration and a really powerful narrator who took a little bit of time to figure out, and then combining it with shot variety, different lighting techniques, and music. If you watch the whole thing, it builds a little tension, and it releases, and it builds it again. It makes for a whole viewing experience that tries to convey that brand message, that craft, and tries to really relate with the audience in that kind of way.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Derek wrote the script. I think it was super compelling. It's quite heavenly. I'm gonna go out there and say that it was just, I wanted to be there. That's what the thing is like. You imagine yourself being in that space, and I wanted to be in that space and drink a ton of wine. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, so it was. I thought it was powerful. I thought it was a great spot.
Well, thank you. I mean, ultimately, I guess it comes down to, we're not always creating things that have this like really super linear, hard or narrative to follow, like you'd be watching a sitcom or a film.
Or Braveheart. Yeah.
Or Braveheart. You can really use visuals and combine it with the different forms of execution to be able to really like convey your message in a way that's compelling. And I think that's really the core of what we're always looking to do, because especially as a creative director, a lot of times I'm coming to something very conceptual, trying to come up with kind of what the idea of the whole arc is going to be. And then I may pitch it to somebody like Eric, who basically takes the paints and goes, hey, this is how we're going to actually paint this.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the overall goal is, like you said, is to be compelling and memorable, and that's the whole thing. That's the basis of it. Is, that influences decisions. If you resonate with somebody, they build that trust, and they either go with you or they don't. Honestly, yeah. So next.
So yeah. So overall, once you've gone through the work of making your story, you got to share it. Where are you going to find that audience? I mean, perhaps you're going to consider this long before you ever get to this phase, but it is the kind of last phase. Is it going to be on your website? Are you considering for TV or radio, which can still be compelling media or still mediums, depending on who your target is? Digital advertising.
Yeah, I mean, depending on your audience and your message is huge. Considering, you want to show a narrative of corporate responsibility or social mission, Gen Zs, they eat that up, they love that stuff. And that's 32% of the population, that's a huge portion of the population. So to get to them, social media is a huge platform to use to send that message. Obviously, putting it on your website is the most cost-effective way to get your video out there, and social media. I mean, like I said before, it's targeted and usually very cost-effective as well. You can measure and change campaigns. The thing about social media is that a lot of people are doing it these days, so there's a lot of competition. So it's super important to be different and stand out. And then there's a lot of different platforms on social media where you have to tailor each video to that certain platform. So there's positives and negatives per platform for sure.
Yeah, and overall, I mean, this share kind of being the last step, sure, but like really, I prefer to share early on, even if it's only with a small group. See how it resonates. Obviously, just like you would do a sketch of something or write an initial draft, see what kind of the impact is, and see if the message is coming clear. Those are, I think, really important steps. Is to kind of get buy-off along the way and see how things really work. So,
yeah, I think the biggest thing is if as creatives, we come up with ideas and we're just driving along and we think of something and just getting it down on paper and sharing it with somebody and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think this would be great? Just getting it down is the first step in producing something great. So I highly recommend to always write things down, and else it's going to sometimes be gone forever, so super important for that.
So to wrap it all up, why tell a story? Obviously, it's a great way to connect with your audience, and it's worked for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah,
right?
Really. You got to start with a theme. We talked about just a handful of themes out of thousands of themes you can come up with. I mean, you can base it off of sadness, humor. I mean, there's a ton of funny ones out there that are super effective. There's just a ton of themes that you can work with.
Yeah, and then consider your executions. How are you going to paint it? How are you going to make and mold your whatever it is, website, app, augmented reality. There's a lot of possibilities, and just consider them all, or find other people that can help collaborate with you to make your story come to life.
Yeah, make it happen. Let's do it. Let's get it done. Let's not wait. Let's get it out there. So so thank you guys for being with us today. We really appreciate you spending your lunch hour listening to us and talk about Braveheart. Go see it if you haven't seen it. And our passion about visual storytelling.
100%. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Hey, Derek and Eric, we got a few questions here in the queue. The first one comes from the esteemed leader of our planning committee for PRSA, Andrea McMakin wants to know, and I think it's from you, Andrea, how would you do storytelling for something like an announcement of a new business product or service?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it just comes down to kind of like, what it is, how we can find ways to make it relate with the audience and how we can craft it and what our kind of themes would kind of be, does the announcement or service, is it something really happy and joyous? Can we use humor? And then like what other elements can we like integrate? Elements of pop culture, things like that. Again, we looked at like the Spotify ads. They tell really simple stories in 2 frames. Could we use something like that to do an announcement? I think it really comes down to, what it is we'd be promoting.
Yeah, it really is based on the product and the event, or we have to tailor things. We can't be general in our messaging because that's just kind of just lazy. So yeah, it just depends.
Okay, great. Hey, here's one from Julie Fisher. She wants to know, what are the rules about use of music if we add that to a video we produce in-house?
Are we talking about rules in regards to copyright? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going with this. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. So in regards to that, we use royalty-free music services where we're paying a single-time fee. You can certainly license things in the music setting. That say for popular music, that tends to be what you'd want to actually do is reach out to what I think they're called a clearance attorney officially. They actually reach out to the record company, not necessarily always the record company, but whoever owns the song. You typically end up paying a royalty on that. That means that every time it plays, it either pays or you have it for a certain amount of time. When we use royalty-free from our different vendors, we pay a fee a single time. We're able to reiterate it, but that's where things can kind of popular music. We get requests for that. It's really it's hard. The costs tend to be prohibitive for projects of our scale, but that's kind of where you're at. I would definitely highly recommend using royalty-free music services. Artlist, what's one that you use?
Epidemic.
Yeah.
We get that all the time where, hey, we saw this song on YouTube and it's by Maroon 5. We want to use Maroon 5. Is that cool? And we're like, yeah, if we have $50,000 to buy it, for sure. But it's a huge pain to license songs that are from big artists.
Right.
So we tend to find something similar on our subscription options that are fraction of the cost.
Now that's also a great question. There's other options as well. We have in the past hired independent musicians to create things we would say that are in the vein of, that aren't exact. Obviously, the lyrics aren't going to match. Typically, the tone and the feel are going to be the same, but it's going to be in a different key. The other option that you could have as well, sometimes if the musician owns the rights to the music and it wasn't bought out by the record label, you can actually reach out to the musician, and if they respond, they can grant you rights. I can speak of that most recently in a project that I know that Visit Tri-Cities produced, in which they created a parody song of the band Cake's "Going the Distance," and Cake actually gave them the ability to create that. Now, parodies typically, I think, fall under fair use, but in our sphere, it's usually if you're gonna try to get something that's popular music, you're gonna want to reach somebody that specializes in clearance. Otherwise, just use royalty-free.
Okay, royalty-free, and you mentioned one of these was Epidemic. Something tells me that we're not going to forget that at the moment. Epidemic, that sticks to the mind. Hey, but Jessica Morgan is looking for a little bit more. She wants to know what if you could talk about the top sites to get royalty-free sounds, music, even stock, and I suppose you may mean photo stock there, free and both paid.
Yeah, again, if we're talking about stock imagery, we rely a lot on if it's video, Shutterstock,
iStock,
yep. Adobe. Those are all really great places, and then we use them for photos and imagery as well. If you're looking for, now those are all paid premium services. If you're looking for free, Unsplash is a great one. I think another one is what I was just looking at it. Pexels, Pexels is another good one.
Right.
I'm not aware of any royalty-free music sites. However, if you're big into SoundCloud, because it's a lot of self-published stuff, a lot of people that maybe they're a DJ, whatever, electronic musician, they're publishing stuff that might fit your project and they just want to get promotion.
Right.
You might be able to use that music, especially if they have Creative Commons license, where they make it available on their SoundCloud that you can use it in that context, you can, or you can just reach out to the artist directly. And usually it just takes a little link back or a credit and you can use it.
Awesome. Hey, we've got a comment from someone here that says they love Unsplash and Pixels for free photos and video.
There you go.
Hey, that's great to know. Okay, hey, we've got a question here by local graphic designer, creative design pro, one of our members, Nick Lippold, who wants to know how much effort would you suggest putting toward website background video? And do you know if people pay attention to those background scene videos? And he adds, with so many stock videos to access, is it worth it to pay more attention for this or have video shots specifically for that site?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
In my experience, like website background videos have been really popular, I'd say probably like the last 7-8 years now. Basically since HTML5 became commonplace in CSS3, where you could actually kind of embed that kind of stuff. I would say this, if it's not going to hamper performance, it's definitely a consideration. I think that I've heard a lot of feedback. It just depends on who the audience is, that they can be really distracting. I tend to think that like on a homepage hero of a website, your focus is really to try to get people to what they came to look for right away. And so if it's distracting or taking away from a call to action or a primary headline, I'd say nuke it. I know that we had a background video in our hero on our Focal Point website up till about 2 or 3 weeks ago, where I just finally yanked it off there because of performance related issues. Video is massive. And even after a lot of compression, even if you're talking about a 30-second looping video, it tends to be a lot bigger than a compressed JPEG. So in my world, I'm all about the performance. And they don't, typically you're doing like it's going to work on desktop and not on mobile. And so, like if that's a consideration, I'd put those things first. I tend to, if I'm going to do video on a website, it's because I want to tell a story or a narrative of some sort, or try to engage the audience some way. And therefore I prefer the call to action of play the video.
Yeah.
And then like have them do that and maybe have something that has audio, because again, it's a big no-no back from like the 90s days and like things like that to have audio play right when you show up on the website. So those kind of background images, they can be really compelling. And I think that it just depends on the audience and performance considerations.
Yeah, there's 2 ways to go about that. I mean, if it's specific to a certain maybe area that you want to promote, and you have video of like a mountain, mountains and islands and beaches, and it's for like Tri-Cities, and obviously that's distracting and it doesn't work. So depending on the website and your business, I think you can get away with stock imagery. But then you want to incorporate some of the people maybe in the video as well. It'd be useful to get a video of that, of people from your business on there.
Okay, awesome. I think you're just, Eric, kind of addressing the next question here from Allison, who wanted to know if you got any tips to share regarding using still photos versus videos for this type of visual storytelling. In other words, you're still making a video, right? But you're using still photos to make a compilation. And you kind of talked on that. You got any more to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, still photos are not as dynamic. I don't think they're as dynamic and compelling as video, but it's still useful. I mean, depending on your budget. I mean, if you don't have a huge budget for a video, and photos are much cheaper to use for your video, so it can be useful. The way you show your photos in a certain slideshow. I know sometimes we only have photos to use, and so what we did was we actually put it in Photoshop and photoshopped out the foreground to the background and kind of had a moving shot to the photo. And that was, I thought it was much different than what I've ever seen. So just depending, It depends.
We almost put it in here, but we ended up on the cutting room floor. Eric actually produced. Eric is a longtime focal pointer. He started with us back with 2012 until 2016. And while he was here, he actually went with Sign Fracture Care, if you're familiar, to the Philippines and Cambodia. And while he was there, his job was to do videography and photography. He actually, while he was there, composed a series of images of life there. And if you're not familiar with what Sign does, they do a lot of it's like bone repair, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so anyways, he was able to kind of you were able to construct this narrative through a series of video or series of photos that really told the day-to-day life, and I thought made a really compelling dramatic visuals, and you actually got nationally recognized for that.
Just stop.
So it is, I think that, like, obviously, like, a single image doesn't always convey the image, but like convey the narrative. But I think through this series, which is something we had published previously, it used to be on our blog, you could see kind of again, it kind of tells its own story without having to have writing to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, throwing a slideshow up there, I mean, we've seen our uncle do that a ton of times on Facebook. It can be pretty forgettable. So yeah, depending with how you show your photos, and if you do any Photoshop and kind of move some images, and I've seen some ads that utilize that really well. So yeah.
Hey, we had a sort of drop the mic comment on the chat from Thomas Manley, who said, Ken Burns. And that's all he said. Right? We've all seen the Ken Burns documentaries. That's all he's got to work with, his photos. And he just does a beautiful job, doesn't he?
Absolutely does. 100%. So
Yeah.
with the parallaxing and kind of panning around.
Yep.
Hey, I'm not seeing any more questions, but we do have a comment on chat. And in the spirit of diversity and inclusion, I absolutely want to address this. One of our viewers has a comment regarding the Nike video, that one of the images gives the wrong impression about Muslims. And I would invite our contributor. I'm not seeing the message there. If they'd like to, feel free to clarify in the chat room. But absolutely, we, in the spirit of diversity and inclusion, that, in fact, maybe you guys can have had some experience where you've been working videos and realized that, hey, you took a wrong turn, and there may be something that's going to be either turn off or even offend a certain aspect of the audience. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. That's happened to me a few times. There's been times where people don't want to be on film, and they see it and they're like, well, I didn't want to be on film, or, so we have to edit it out. I mean, it's not, the thing is, videos, they're not always going to appeal to everybody, and some people are be offended by it. I assume that Nike would have shown them in the Muslim community, or, had them approve it before they posted it. But yeah, it happens quite frequently, and that's why we have a lot of revisions and a lot of edits before we send it out. And sometimes when we send it out, to TV, and we get some complaints, we'll have to do a revision and send out another version. But yeah, it does happen for sure.
Well, and I would just say that, again, like, kind of drafting and sharing a story, that's a big component, especially coming up with a conceptual idea, because I mean, I frequently have to write from my perspective, and I think that we can kind of be blinded by our own perspective sometimes. So it's really, I try to when we come up with, whether even in the concepting stage, before I ever write a word in a script, a lot of times I'll pitch it out to not just the target audience, but I want to hear female perspective, male, right, non-gender conforming. I want whoever I can get, because I do value their opinion, and I do value, we want to appeal to everybody, and
as most people as you can. So, yeah.
I guess it's unfortunate, obviously, with the Nike thing, and it's just, I guess that's where it's just really important to get feedback and see what people feel, and try to adjust and consider that.
And also in the Nike ad, there's, it depends on when you show the ad too. I mean, LeBron James was in it. He's in some hot water right now, so depending on when you show it, you can produce it, put it out there, something happens, and that person becomes controversial, and and then they got to edit it out. So that happens all the time.
Yeah, it was Bruce Springsteen, right? We all know about, he had a great ad during the Super Bowl, and he gets busted with a driving and liquor issue a few days later, and there goes that ad. We don't see that anymore. Sure.
Right.
So, and what we're all hearing too is focus on the target audience, but not to the exclusion of everybody else that's watching. Hey, Derek and Eric, that seems to have emptied out our chat box.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for spending your lunch with us. We appreciate it.
Definitely.
Yeah, and thank you, Derek and Eric, for presenting. Which, by the way, have you guys thought about doing a podcast? Because you guys are like great at speaking. When I was listening to you guys reminded me of like my favorite podcasters. Just two friends talking about a subject, and really entertaining to listen to. And I learned a lot. If anyone out there's like me, when I get asked to make a short video, I don't even know where to start sometimes. And sort of just having these steps, like establishing a theme, building your story, making your story, and where you're going to share your story. I think those are great places to start. So your knowledge with us. Megan, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you guys so much.